Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. We finally are able to start an episode today without a countdown to kickoff update because we finally have a game to recap. It was fantastic having a full slate of college football back this weekend. Fans in the stands felt normal. It felt like pre-COVID college football, which was fantastic. Purdue got its season started on Saturday with a quality 30-21 win over Oregon State. We have quite a bit to talk about from this one. I got some great questions from you all on Twitter. And if the episode isn't too long, which I think we should be good, we'll knock out this weekend's preview for the game at UConn today as well. If we're getting too long, I'll cut it off and we'll do a separate episode later in the week. But before we dive into the game, I just wanted to say thank you. Last week on the show, I asked you all to help me spread the word about the podcast, about Boilers and Beyond, and you guys came through more than I ever could have imagined. Last week's episode was by far the most listened to show we've had here. I'm super excited to see what the rest of this season has in store. To those of you who are new, welcome. I'm Jordan Jones, your host here. I'm here on the show every week bringing you the latest in Purdue athletics through football and basketball season. Thrilled to have you guys on board. Give me a follow on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. But diving into the action now. Thank you again to everybody. Great win for Purdue this weekend, 30-21 over Oregon State. You know, a very, very brief summary. I know 98% of you all watched the game. Oregon State strikes first on their second possession of the game. Purdue follows that up with 16 straight points. It should have been a lot more than 16, but we'll get to that later. Got to 16-14 with Oregon State having the ball at the start of the fourth quarter. Purdue was able to get the ball back, go up 23-14. That got cut to 2 points again, but a massive play with just over 2 minutes to go. Jack Plummer to a wide open Payne Durham, 50-yard touchdown to seal the deal. And for those of you who are interested in the gambling aspect, of course, that play covered the spread. Purdue was favored by 7 and won the game by 9. Purdue needed this win really, really badly, and we talked about this on the show quite a bit last week. It was a packed crowd at Ross-Ade on Saturday. I was not able to be there. I was in a wedding for one of my best friends from high school. Don't worry, I was able to watch the whole game. Shout out to YouTube TV for the iPhone app. And have rewatched it since then. We'll be at every home game from here on out, though. But it was a packed crowd. Everything looked like Ross-Ade was electric on Saturday night. And, you know, that is something that you can really build off of, or that's something that can really hurt you. If Purdue came out and laid a dud the way a lot of FBS teams, a lot of Power 5 teams did this weekend, that would have really, really hurt things because, you know, it's kind of like your first chance post-COVID to make a good impression, and it's a great way to get people excited. Purdue came out, they did what they needed to do to win the game. They have room for improvement, but all in all, I think excitement is high. I'm always, looking at the message boards, looking at Twitter, seeing what people are saying. And I think, the engagement I'm seeing is pretty high from fans right now. I think people are excited. And now it's up to Purdue to keep that going as they go to UConn and from there on out. Some takeaways from this game, and I've got lots of them. The first game of the year, you don't always know what to expect, especially when, there is quite a bit new. You have an entire new coaching staff on one side of the ball. You are, really just starting fresh. It's a new season. You have a new starting quarterback. his first time being the season opening starter at least. So quite a bit to talk about. Speaking of quarterback, though, Purdue made the right call going with Jack Plummer. I felt this way coming in. Certainly, I had no way to be certain of this, but after watching the game multiple times, Purdue certainly made the right call. He had a very, very good day. He was 29 of 41 for 313 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that doesn't include 2 touchdowns that didn't happen that should have. He made a great throw to David Bell on the second possession of the game where pass interference was not called, even though it should have been. And then on the first drive of the second half, Plummer's best throw of the night was a deep shot to the end zone to Milton Wright. Went right through his hands. Purdue had to settle for a field goal there. That was a third down play. That very easily, could have put those numbers up to 350 passing, 4 touchdowns. He had a great game. His second best game in a Purdue uniform, rivaling that Maryland game back in 2019 for sure. Plummer was really good. We saw his mobility really help him. One of the plays that will stick out, he was rolling to his right towards the Purdue sideline, hit Jackson Anthrop, who was barely able to keep his feet in, but he did. Plays like that simply cannot be made by Aiden O'Connell, and there are certainly things O'Connell does better than Plummer, too. When you can't move the pocket, when you're staying in the pocket, I think O'Connell's the better passer, but all in all, Plummer was able to be a little more dynamic, and that really helped Purdue, especially when he had to buy a little time to let receivers get open downfield. I'm excited to see how Plummer, bounces back, and can he build good performance on good performance as they go to UConn this weekend. But in game 1, he looked like the man who's going to hold down that starting job. I made the prediction last week that he's going to start all 12. That was bold. I don't know how great I feel about that still. But for right now, I like it. He looked really good. Another takeaway from this one, Jackson Anthrop is incredibly valuable for this team. 6th-year senior, you don't see that often. He is one of the last players still around from the Daryl Hazel years. I guess Samisi Fakasieki's still around. I don't know if anyone else is or not, but, Anthrop is incredibly valuable. TJ Sheffield wasn't available in this one, so Anthrop's your slot option, and he comes out, has 7 receptions, 34 yards, almost had another one for a touchdown, able to get a couple of jet sweep plays, a couple of carries for 5 yards. He is so valuable to this team because he can do so much, and you can put him in a lot of roles where he's going to get the job done. He returned punts for Purdue in this one. Granted, I don't think he actually returned any. I think they were all fair catches, which is fine. That's all you need. It is more than okay to take a fair catch and go get your drive started than try to make something out of nothing, results in a fumble or, a loss of yardage. That was one of the frustrations of Rondale Moore at times. Anthrop is incredibly valuable to this team. I think even with TJ Sheffield coming back, I expect to see Anthrop quite a bit just because of how reliable he is and how good of a presence that I think he is. I have no way of knowing, but how good of a presence I think he is for this receiver room as a whole. Really good day for 33. The stars come out at night, and David Bell and George Karlaftis were by far the 2 best players on the field. David Bell, 8 receptions, 134 yards, should have had a touchdown, as I said, an egregious no call on a pass interference early in the first quarter. Bell just, is rock solid as can be. He really only had one or two catches that were really deep throws. He's fantastic at getting yards after the catch. He is reliable as can be with his hands. David Bell was fantastic. This is a great start for him in a year that is probably going to be his last in a Purdue uniform. I expect him to be in the NFL at this time next year, and now the question is, can he be a first-round pick? On Twitter, Miles asked me about my prediction for Bell breaking the single-season receiving yard record. Through one game, he's on pace to. If he puts up 134 yards in every game, he's on pace to break that record. Way too early to be talking about that coming true. But Bell was absolutely spectacular, and it wasn't something where it felt like he was catching every ball or it felt like he was all over the place. That's just how David Bell is. He's cool, he's calm, he's collected. He's not flashy, but boy, does he get the job done as well as any Purdue receiver I've ever seen. George Karlaftis, on the other hand, didn't have the stats that David Bell did. Karlaftis had, where is he here? 4 tackles, one of them solo, half a tackle for a loss. You could have realistically watched that game and thought that Karlaftis had 10 tackles and a couple of sacks. He was in the backfield on every single play, it felt like. He was all over Sam Neuer, the starting quarterback for the Beavers. And the interesting thing is that Karlaftis lines up in so many different spots. He lines up on the blind side. He lines up on the other side. He lines up inside of the tackle. He lines up way high up of the tackle. He's everywhere. And no matter where Purdue put him on Saturday, he was able to get in the backfield and be disruptive. Again, 4 total tackles, half one for a loss. That's fine. That surprised me when I saw it, just how low those numbers were, because he truly disrupted that game more than anyone. His season's off to an unbelievable start, and he really rushed a few throws with quarterback hits. I can think of a third down early in the game where he lit up Neuer, who threw the ball into the middle of nowhere just because he had nowhere to go with the ball. Karlaftis was just all over all night. He's going to be so much fun to watch this year. Part of that with the defensive front, I thought the run defense for Purdue was really, really good in this one, because coming in, one of my concerns was that Oregon State had a very experienced O-line. I believe they brought back all 5 starters. They did lose their leading rusher from last year, but with that offensive line, I was a little worried that they were going to be able to move the ball on the ground against Purdue. They really didn't. 25 carries for 78 yards. If you would have put that number out before the game, I think everyone, me, you, the coaching staff, the defensive players, I think everyone takes that. I was impressed. Purdue rotated their defensive tackles quite a bit. Karlaftis was on the field a lot. Over at the Leo position, the other defensive end, essentially, Kydron Jenkins and DeMarcus Mitchell both played a good amount of snaps there. But in the middle, Branson Dean, Lawrence Johnson, the 2 starters, both played pretty well. And then DeMar-J Lewis and DJ Washington came off the bench and played well. And that's encouraging. DeMar-J Lewis, the redshirt freshman transfer from Indiana, had a really nice game. It's always good when you can get a redshirt freshman on the field at one of those positions where, usually it takes quite a bit of physical development to get there. And then DJ Washington, the converted offensive lineman, it's good to see him get on the field. And if he wasn't going to do it at the offensive line, then it's good to see him on the field, and he did a really nice job. Early on, he blew up a run up the middle by shedding his block from an offensive guard. Really, really nice play. He looked comfortable there, which is kind of what you worry about when he just made the transition in fall camp to defensive tackle. But I thought as a whole, Dean and Johnson played well, especially Lawrence Johnson. I thought it was nice to see him. He really struggled early on in 2019 when he was being asked to play too quickly. He wasn't ready for that. Now he's a little more physically developed. He's a little more mature. He had a nice game. And staying on that side of the ball, the new defensive scheme by Brad Lambert and Ron English, Mark Hagan, really, really is good for Purdue's athletes in the back seven. I've always been high on Corey Trice on this show. Anytime you have a 6'3 corner, you have to let him go play. And finally, Corey Trice was able just to go play. Last year, Purdue really didn't let him play in space at all. Bob Diaco really tried to hold him up on the sidelines and not let him roam around much. In this one, he was really good. The only time you saw him really give up a consequential completion was that deep ball late in the game where there was no safety help. Not sure if that was by design or not, but he was really good. His 4th and 1 breakup with about 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter was probably the most understated play of the game because Purdue had just punted to give the ball back to the Beavers in a 2-point game mid-fourth quarter. Oregon State tries to almost run up and snap the ball quick on 4th and 1. Little play action from Chance Nolan goes deep. Trice knocked it away. A fantastic play because, him and his receiver were the only two guys on that side of the 50-yard line, I think. That was true one-on-one, and he made the play. Thought Jalen Graham was really good. I think he's finally being cast in the right role. He's so athletic, but at that outside linebacker spot, he's been asked to be a run stopper at times. He's not that big. He's not going to be a run-stopping linebacker. But Purdue brought him on some blitzes in this one. He had a strip sack of Neuer early in the, maybe it was the first quarter even, that, Purdue almost recovered. Oregon State held on to it, but that was a great play. Graham was really good in pass coverage. By far the best he's looked in that role so far. I think this defensive coaching staff has done a great job with Jalen Graham, and I think he's going to have a big year. Cam Allen has always flown around the field. He's a high-energy player, and Saturday night was no exception. A massive interception late in the second quarter that led to a Purdue field goal, almost led to a touchdown, but that interception was big, and there's just some serious swagger from that group. They were fired up all night. Cam Allen and Marvin Grant are going to bring that all year. You saw Marvin Grant waving goodbye to the Oregon State bench after him and Chris Jefferson batted away the final pass of the fourth quarter to officially seal the deal with about 20 seconds left. Just an awesome debut for this defensive staff. There weren't many missed tackles. That was surprising to me. The rules have changed now from the NCAA. There can be less live tackling in camp. So seeing Purdue able to have a clean defensive performance with, not a lot of missed tackles and some really good open field tackling, that's encouraging. I thought the special teams was much improved. Mitchell Finneran was fantastic. 3 for 3 kicking, perfect on extra points. Had that 48-yard field goal, his first ever kick in the black and gold was money from 48. We did see kind of where his limit is in the first quarter. Purdue Could have given him the chance to boot one from 53. They elected not to. They punted instead. Probably a good idea. I don't know that you want the first field goal of a new kicker's career at Purdue to be from 53 yards. That's asking a lot. Thought Jack Ansel was pretty good. 37 yards per punt isn't spectacular. It's nothing crazy, but it's a lot better than what Purdue had last year. He was consistent. Every punt was good. He had the one on that aforementioned, short punt from the 35-yard line that checked up and was downed inside the 1-yard line. So thought he was good there. Not much in the return game for Oregon State. Purdue's going to have to keep after the special teams group because last year it was such a problem. You can't let that happen again. It's just backbreaking. It cost Purdue 2 games last year. It helped them win this one. And for as much criticism as he has gotten, and I've offered some on this show before, Jeff Brom was fantastic in this game. He was aggressive. We saw some unconventional stuff that he's known for. A speed option to open up the season isn't what I expected at all. Got 4 yards. Saw it again later in a play that was called back for something, but saw that a few times. He didn't quit on the run game. I've preached this over and over. The Iowa game last year was so good for Purdue because Brian Brom didn't quit on the run game. Jeff didn't do that tonight. Xander Horvath was good, 21 carries for 81 yards. King Doru got some action, 5 carries for 7, although probably should be 4 for 11 because the 4-yard loss on a flip at the 1-yard line from Jack Plummer wasn't necessarily on Doru. A tough play that didn't work out. But, we saw Dylan Downing as well. He came in for 1 series in the second quarter, I believe it was. The UNLV transfer, originally from Carmel. So, didn't quit on the run game. Wasn't as effective as they probably would have liked, but at least they were still doing it, keeping Oregon State on their toes, and that set up the play action later that was fantastic and really helped Payne Durham have an unbelievable game. I think I counted 3 or 4 different play action passes in the fourth quarter that went to Durham. One of them, the short touchdown pass to go up 23-14. Obviously, the second one you all remember because it was the play that won the game. The 3rd and 2 rollout to the right. Durham was wide open. Easy. Could have moonwalked into the end zone there from 50 yards out. Really liked that. Fake field goal didn't work. That was an aggressive play call, though. It was 13-7 at the time. Purdue had just settled for a field goal before halftime that they probably weren't happy about. They were settling for a field goal attempt after Milton Wright dropped a beautiful touchdown ball from Jack Plummer. So Brom dials it up. He kind of hid Jack Albers on the field, had a reverse to him, threw a ball to Payne Durham, a little bit behind him, but, it's your 5th string quarterback. You can't expect too much there. Cool play design. Durham couldn't hold on, and it weirdly got picked off. You don't see that happen much. But, Jeff Brom played to win this game. When Purdue got up, he never played to not lose. He kept the foot on the gas pedal, and that helped Purdue win this one. I had so many questions before the show today about Jeff Brom. He's been polarizing. If you've been listening to this show for a while, we've got some listeners who aren't Jeff Brom fans. We've got some that are. But, people asking, Rob asked if this is a corner being turned for Brom with coming out well early on in the season and keeping his aggressiveness going late. I just addressed the aggressiveness part, but coming out strong in the early season is important. That is a criticism of Brom that is legitimate, and I think that all stems from the 2018 season when Purdue had a boatload of momentum after 2017, the bowl win against Arizona, lost a game they probably should have won against Northwestern, lost to Eastern Michigan in the rain, lost a shootout to Missouri. Now, and of course the Nevada game in 2019 didn't help that narrative either. This is a good start. I want to see Purdue continue and really take care of business against a god-awful Connecticut team next week before I, give it the stamp of early season readiness. But he was a lot better in this than he had been in any early season game since that Louisville opener in his first game. And, are we back to the offensive guru, Brom from Zach? Yeah, he looked really good. He looked confident in what he was calling. After the game in the press conference, he did note that, he would have been criticized for the 3rd and 2 pass late, but, he did it anyways, and that's what matters. You want your coach, I hear this all the time as a Bears fan with Matt Nagy, you want your coach to have conviction in his play calls. Jeff Brom had the conviction tonight, and that was huge for him. Finally, a small but important note, Purdue was clean in this. 4 penalties for 35 yards. 15 of those yards came from Marty Biaggi with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for being on the field after a delay of game on a field goal attempt. Had an offensive pass interference on Payne Durham that brought back a big catch from Brock Thompson. And then a delay of game to start the final drive that Purdue ended up scoring a touchdown on. David Bell had a 23-yard reception right after the delay of game. But, really a very clean performance, especially for the first game of the year. Now, I say all these things, all these positives. I will start the few concerns I have, and nothing's major, but Oregon State's not a good team. I thought it was interesting that before the game and in the whole week leading up to it, everyone from the Oregonian sports staff, the Portland newspaper out there, called it a toss-up. They predicted Oregon State to win unanimously. Purdue was 7-point favorites in Vegas. Purdue should have won this by a lot more. I don't know why Sam Neuer started for Oregon State. I don't know how he was second team all Pac-12 last year. I'll admit, last year, I'm usually very good about watching tons of college football, staying up for Pac-12 after dark. Last year, with the weird year, I struggled to get into some of that stuff. There is no way this guy was the second best quarterback in the Pac-12 last year. He missed receivers all night long. A lot of throws weren't even close. They were supposed to have 9 receivers who could really contribute. I saw maybe 2 guys that looked all right. All their points came on drives that had a big play. First touchdown came directly off the double pass. They'd put a receiver in motion and then, threw the ball laterally to him. He threw it downfield. That happens. They had a big screen play early in the fourth quarter and then a deep ball on that last scoring drive of theirs that beat Corey Trice. Just no one behind him. That was a tough one for Purdue. Other than that, none of their drives were that promising. They had a couple first downs. They had just crossed midfield when Cam Allen had the interception late in the first half. The Chance Nolan kid who came in late in the third quarter looked a lot better at quarterback than Neuer did. But this isn't going to be a good Oregon State team, so all of this is relative. 1 week in, you can only play who's on your schedule, but Purdue should have won this game by a lot more. I went back, rewatched the game the next day after the wedding, so I was fully attentive when I rewatched it. I counted 19 points left on the board. You had the second drive of the game where I'm not counting the Bell touchdown with pass interference, but Purdue's lining up for a field goal. They commit a delay of game penalty, and Marty Biaggi gets a personal foul for being on the field. Takes him back. They punt. There's 3 points left on the board. End of the first half. Anthrop can't call in the touchdown pass. A little bit underthrown by Plummer. You know, you can argue whether he should have caught it or not. That was a tough play to make. Purdue settles for a field goal. Milton Wright drops a great pass from Jack Plummer. First drive of the third quarter. Fake field goal doesn't work out. There's 7 on the board. And then Purdue gets to first and goal from the 5-yard line in the third quarter. They settle for a field goal. Doru can't bring in the pitch from Plummer on the option out of the one-back formation with Plummer as an H-back. So, you know, that needs to be better. Purdue can't come into many other games besides this UConn game probably. It's probably the last week they'll be able to leave points on the board and win. You know, you're going to settle for field goals sometimes. That's fine. But you can't be settling for field goals when you drop a touchdown pass or when you have first and goal at the 5-yard line. Those need to be touchdowns. You know, Purdue could have won this game 41-21, maybe even 45-21. You know, this could have been a much easier win for Purdue. It wasn't. That's all right. But throughout the season, and especially as Purdue goes to UConn, that needs to be better. The offensive line improved throughout the game, but, you know, certainly isn't where you want it to be yet. The first few drives were really rough. I was really concerned. Jack Plummer was, on the first drive, Purdue went 3 and out. Plummer's third down drop back, he was swarmed quick, had to just get rid of it. And then his first drop back of the second series, he ran for his life and had to throw it into Milton Wright's feet. So, throughout the game, they got better. They only played 6 guys. Cam Craig came off the bench to help out in the second half, but you saw the same group out there the entire time. Greg Long, Spencer Holstead, Gus Hartwig, Tyler Witt, and Eric Miller with Cam Craig coming in the second half. So that's probably going to be your group all year. Dave Monett was unavailable for this game with an injury. He is probably the 7th guy that Purdue would be comfortable playing, but it's going to be a pretty small group this year. So you hope they can stay healthy and become more cohesive as a unit, especially with a weak opponent coming up. You want to see, at least I want to see, a little more from some of the other receivers on the roster. Now, I've already talked about Payne Durham and David Bell having big days. Jackson Anthrop was great, but Milton Wright, no catches. Only really had the one ball that he should have caught that was thrown his way. Brock Thompson had 1 reception in the first quarter, had a second called back. Nothing for Mershawn Rice. He was kind of the big story coming out of fall camp. He was supposed to kind of break out this year. Not that he still can't. You know, it's early. We're only 1 game down. We still have 11 to go, but didn't see much from him. Sheffield was unavailable. Abdur-Rahman Yassin, the redshirt freshman, former 4-star recruit, was unavailable. It sounds like Sheffield is going to be able to play against UConn. We'll see who gets more reps at that slot position, him or Jackson Anthrop. I think it's going to be pretty split. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jackson Anthrop out there more than Sheffield. We'll see. A lot of people on Twitter asked what needs the most improvement here. Grandpa Fitz brought that up. Zach brought that up. I think the blocking as a whole, because, the offensive line isn't going to be a real strength of this team, but I think it can get better, and the tight ends need to block better as well. I was encouraged to see Jack Kravik come in and play the H-back role. He came in from tight end there. I think we'll see more of that, go into some 21 personnel with him in the backfield, but it's going to be a lot of 11 personnel. And Garrett Miller missed a couple of blocks that were concerning. One of them led to Plummer getting lit up after a throw. You want to see a little bit better blocking from them. Thought the receivers did a nice job of blocking in the run game, though. That was impressive to me. Not much really came poorly from that. So, going into this game, I do the keys to a win. I had the special teams. We've already talked about that. They did well. Forced turnovers. I wanted 2. They almost got it. Cam Allen had that interception. Jalen Graham had the strip sack that almost got there. Karlaftis forced a bad throw from Neuer that Chris Jefferson almost was able to dive and catch. So they were close there. And then convert third downs. This is going to be something we have to track all year. Purdue has struggled in the past to convert third and short. In this one, 5 for 7 on 3rd and 4 or less. Fantastic. That is excellent if you're Purdue. Horvath ran really hard in a lot of those positions. You don't want to make it that hard on him every time. Converted a lot of them by a half yard. But he was able to convert a lot of them. They didn't come easy, but all in all, Purdue's 1-0. They got a good win over a Power 5 opponent. Fans were into it. Now they will go from an environment that was rocking to a terrible, terrible football team and the UConn Huskies. It is going to be a sleepy afternoon up in Hartford where they play. This is a terrible team. Week 0, UConn went out to Fresno State and lost 45-0. The Huskies accumulated less than 200 yards of offense in that. And then, this past weekend, they lose 38-28 at home to Holy Cross. Their quarterback throws 3 interceptions. Holy Cross outgains them by 100 yards, so this wasn't some fluke upset. Usually you can spot that with the yardage. If it's a fluke upset, no. Holy Cross was the better team in that game. And then yesterday, I'm recording this Monday night. On Sunday, Randy Edsall announces he's going to retire at the end of the season. He'd come back. They'd done some really good things under Edsall back in the late 2000s when they were in the Big East. Now he's leaving, and this program has nothing going for it. Got a question on Twitter that asked, is this program even going to be around in 5 years? And it's a fair question. They're independent now. The UConn had left the AAC, I guess it was last year. This past basketball season was their first back in the Big East. So all their other sports are in the Big East. Football's independent. The question now, do you drop down to the FCS? It's really hard to be independent in football. Notre Dame can do it. We've seen some schools. Idaho had recently tried that a few years ago. They're down to the FCS now. They were the first school to ever voluntarily drop from FBS to FCS. Will UConn follow? Who knows? But and I brought up in the start of this segment, UConn Stadium's 30 minutes off campus out in Hartford. So I don't know what, excuse me, I don't know what all their problems are, but there are certainly a lot of them. And on the field, I don't know if they have a strength. On offense, they're averaging 1.8 yards per carry so far on the ground. That's not very good. Their quarterback, Jack Zergidis or Zergiotis, something. He is 29 of 65 through the air. That's 44%. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions through 2 games. Threw 3 picks against Holy Cross. They've punted the ball 18 times through 2 games. Purdue punted 5 times the other night. This is a bad UConn team. There's no doubt about it. Purdue needs to come in and win this game easily. Vegas certainly thinks Purdue will. Purdue is 33.5-point favorites. This is by far the biggest favorite role I can remember Purdue being in. think I saw something that the last time they were this heavy of favorites was against an FBS team, was the 05 opener against Akron. We're going back 16 years, way back to the Brandon Kirsch days on that one. So, this number opened up Sunday at 32, and it's already been bet up to 33.5. So, money's coming in on the Boilers. If that's you out in the crowd, best of luck to you. That's a lot of points to lay, but it's a 3 o'clock kick, CBS Sports Network, so check your TV package. I know the last time Purdue was on CBS Sports Network, I had to check to make sure I got it, so check your TV this week. Make sure you have a way to watch the game. My 3 keys, and, it's not that these are even 3 keys to victory. It's the 3 things that Purdue should take the most seriously. Number 1, they got to be ready to play. They had a big win on Saturday. I know Oregon State's not a great opponent, but Purdue had a big win under the lights in front of a almost sold-out Ross-Ade Stadium. That was exciting. Now you're going out to a mid-afternoon kickoff, well away from home, out in the Northeast. There will be 15,000 people there, maybe. I think their stadium seats in the 30s. I think they said they had 18,000 at their game against Holy Cross. So there's going to be no one there. It's going to be a very dead environment. Purdue's going to have to bring its own energy and be ready to play. I want to see Purdue run the ball effectively. They certainly should against this UConn defense that just gave up 38 points to Holy Cross. Get Xander Horvath some carries. Let's see what King Doru can do. And hey, if Purdue can get a nice little lead going, let's see Dylan Downing. Let's see Jaquez Cross. It doesn't sound like Samson James has been cleared yet. Who knows if he will? I think that's in serious question, but let's see more of Downing, the transfer. Let's see true freshman Jaquez Cross. I'd love to see that. Hopefully Purdue can bust this open and get down deep in the depth charts. And more than anything, stay healthy. Purdue, part of being ready to play too, you have a look ahead to a massive game. Notre Dame in 2 weeks is lurking. The Irish did not look great against Florida State, but going up there is always a challenge. Purdue has never played well up there. So stay healthy. You need everyone that can possibly be healthy to be healthy for that trip up 31 to South Bend. You do all those 3 things, and, really if you come out to play, you accomplish number 1, and this game's going to go fine. I've got Purdue 45, UConn 14. I can't bring myself to pick Purdue to cover the 33.5. I can't predict it, but I would not be shocked. I'm going to go 45-14, and, hopefully for Purdue, that's an easy one. I'm coming back in now. I have just finished recording the episode, and one of our listeners, Dan, tweeted into me and let me know that Randy Edsall, seeing all sorts of stuff on Twitter. Randy Edsall has now announced he's stepping aside immediately. Purdue will not be seeing Randy Edsall now. Of course, this happens literally as soon as I got done recording. That's just my luck. But defensive coordinator Lou Spanos will be the interim head coach. As I said earlier in the show, Edsall was going to retire at the end of the season. I guess now, that is now. Looking at Spanos, I know nothing about him. He was around the Pittsburgh Steelers for a long time. Spent some time as the defensive coordinator for UCLA, 2 seasons there. Was an analyst for Alabama for 1 year, but has been the defensive coordinator for UConn in 2019. They didn't play last year, and now he is taking over as the interim head coach. Again, I can't say that I know anything about this guy. This doesn't move the needle for me at all, although I don't know that I'm going to predict Purdue to win. I'm not going to predict Purdue to win by more. I'm just keeping the 45-14 prediction. Not that it really matters, but yeah, interesting stuff. Continuing the theme that we have talked about here today, that UConn is kind of a mess. Things are certainly not well in that program, but I wanted to come back and at least bring it up here. That way, I don't look completely misinformed and completely out of date by the time this posts in the morning. But yeah, that's all I have for you now, folks. Thank you for spending some time with me. Keep sharing this thing. I have appreciated so much seeing our listens grow throughout the past week. We had the best week ever before the Oregon State game. Let's see if we can't do it again here. Share it around. Follow us on Twitter @BoilersBeyond. I'll have my thoughts throughout the week, and I'll have my thoughts throughout the game. So be sure to follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You don't want to miss next week's episode. It's a big one. We'll recap this one, however Purdue's trip to UConn goes, and then we'll preview the renewal of the Battle for the Shillelagh. First time in 7 years, the Boilers and Fighting Irish meet up. This one up in South Bend for the first time since 2012. But hey, we have a great weekend coming up. College football, pro football. Enjoy it all. We'll be back next week. See you then.